May 1st, 1989, which is when the park that was formerly known as Disney MGM Studios opened at Walt Disney World. And now, what was interesting is that Michael Eisner, and again, he was the guy behind building a third park in Florida, but he felt there had to be a way to differentiate the studio from the Magic Kingdom in Florida, and likewise Epcot Center. So August 29th, 1989, the Walt Disney Company announced that it had begun negotiations to acquire the Jim Henson Company. And more to the point, as part of that deal, and it's supposedly going to cost $150 million in 1989 money, Lauren. So
And
that's
that's a lot.
almost $500 million in today's money.
Wow.
But anyway, but one of the key components of that was a 15-year-long exclusive contract for Jim Henson's creative services. But anyway, as far as Eisner was concerned, the biggest get here was the Muppets would now live at MGM. That would make Walt Disney World's third theme park different from Florida's Magic Kingdom, where the classic Muppet characters lived. And out ahead of today's show, folks, I sent Lauren some concept art that I have for what was once supposed to be built in Florida, Muppet Movie Land. And Lauren, do you want to talk about what I sent you?
Yeah, except for I'm so sad that that we didn't actually get that. When you sent me those images, I was like, wow, like I can't wait to hear how we ended up with what we got.
All right. Once upon a time, the way it was supposed to happen was, well, first we were going to get Kermit the Frog presents a Muppet Vision 3D, which we got. We actually got. But on the other hand, the next thing up after that was going to be the Great Muppet Movie Ride, which was this ride through attraction where the Great Gonzo was going to explain how your favorite Hollywood movies were made. And for example, the introductory scene for this attraction was Gonzo is in a director's chair, one of those things on a big swooping arm, and there's a giant screen in front of you that shows a scene from Dr. Zhivago, only it's instead of Omar Sharif and Julie Christie, it's Piggy and Kermit dressed in heavy winter clothing, and they're riding a sleigh through a snowstorm. And Gonzo's like, "Well, do you ever wonder how that was done?" And your ride vehicle literally goes under the screen, and on the other side of the screen is a giant snow globe, and inside of the snow globe are Piggy and Kermit. Only they're floating in the water because four Muppet monsters are holding the base of it and shaking it, to make the snow effect. And that's the thing is you constantly showed how movies are made and it's wrong. So, but at the same time, Gonzo's a really talented guy because he's not just a movie director; he's also a restaurateur. And you would have been able to go to the Great Gonzo's Pandemonium Pizza Parlor, where as you sat at your table and you ordered food, you could look up in the rafters and see rats with little hand cars going by as they were supposedly carrying like those little shaker bottles of Parmesan cheese to individual tables. And here's the thing, Lauren, they built it. They actually built that restaurant. It's Mama Melrose.
Oh, I was
In
gonna say,
fact,
is it Pizza Rizzo?
yep. Well, no, that's the interesting part. Pizza Rizzo was actually the quick service restaurant. That was going to be the Swedish chef's TV cooking school. And you'd be able to go in there and order burgers and fries and that sort of thing. But there'd be these great, video screens that were supposedly showing you what was going on live in the kitchen where your food was being prepared. And, every so often you'd see the pizza dough come to life and attack the Swedish chef, or you'd see these faux doors, that were supposedly leading the kitchen that would periodically belch open, and a cloud of smoke and chicken feathers would enter the room, and it was going to be so much fun. But again, the idea was Muppet Movie Land, and 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 mind you, this was Florida. In California, yeah, they were going to start with the Muppet Vision 3D only it was going to go into the Main Street Opera House as the replacement for Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln.
What?
We'll get, yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. All right. So anyway, again, deal gets announced August of 1989. By July, oh, excuse me, January. By January of 1990, production has already begun on Muppet Vision 3D. Then in March of 1990, to sort of introduce the world to the Muppets are coming to Walt Disney World, they literally make a TV special called The Muppets at Walt Disney World. In fact, you can go on YouTube and watch it right now. In the same window of time, Lauren, Jim Henson, again, really one of the first things he's doing as part of his creative services thing, he's shooting a live action Little Mermaid TV show pilot where the Sebastian and Flounder, and by the way, did you know Flounder had a sister named Sandy?
No, I
No,
did not.
but that's a thing that the creatures are puppets, but the Little Mermaid herself is a live action. And again, it's something you can go on YouTube right now and watch. And but anyway, it's all so promising. It's all so wonderful. And then May 16th, 1990, Jim Henson dies suddenly at the age of 53 due to bacterial pneumonia. And the acquisition deal isn't completed yet, Lauren. And more to the point, the wheels start to come off because Jim died without a will, and uh, the estate taxes for the state of New York, and that was where the Jim Henson Company was based at the time. Um, they were going to eat up a lot of the 150 million that Disney had initially said they'd spend for Henson. But where this got interesting and complicated, did Disney came back and said, "Okay, tell you what, we understand about the estate tax situation. We'll help out. We'll give you more money, but you have to give us your half of Sesame Street." And the Henson family was like, "No, we're not going to do that." Meanwhile, August of 1990, word breaks out among the residents of Orange County, and you have to understand this is a very conservative part of the country, Lauren. And when they learned that Mr. Lincoln is being, pushed out of the Main Street Opera House by Kermit the Frog, it's like, oh no,
That's a
they
hard
flood
no.
the
Hard no.
yeah, and oh no, and so they flood Disneyland with letters, and that gets shut down. And this is the point that Disney realizes, wow, it's not going to be as easy to bring the Muppets into the park as much as we thought. Plus, there are now no new movies and TV shows flowing from the creative mind of Jim Henson. And by the way, want to stress here that later this month, on May 29th, the Disney Channel is running a documentary that was directed by Ron Howard called Jim Henson Idea Man, that will look back on the length and breadth of Jim Henson's creative career. So mark your calendar, folks. You're going to really want to watch that show again, May 29th. All right. Okay. And again, you also have to understand the Henson Company, the people who work there, in addition to the family, are still reeling from the loss of Jim. In fact, there's a wonderful television special. Again, you can watch it on YouTube, called The Muppet Salute Jim Henson, that aired on CBS in November of 1990, and seemed full of promise about all the things that were about to happen. It all comes crashing down on December 14th, 1990. The Jim Henson Company announces it is breaking off talks with the Walt Disney Company when it comes to the acquisition of the Muppets. And then, Lauren, it gets worse.
It could get
April
worse.
it gets worse. April 17th, 1991. The Henson Company files a lawsuit against Disney and accuses them of outright theft of their IP. And you have to understand, they are building the theater that Muppet Vision 3D is supposed to debut in later that spring in Florida, and they're suddenly like, hang on, this custom built theater might not have a movie. We're being sued by the Henson family. Anyway, the very next month, May 6th, 1991, Disney and Henson settled their disagreement. They dropped the lawsuit, and an agreement is put in place that will now allow Muppet Vision 3D to open in Florida. Lauren, this was just 10 days before the attraction opened at the
Oh
park.
my
All right, that's
gosh.
how close it came. And and now the two companies start to sort of tiptoe toward one another, and it's like, all right, can we work together, and if so, how? And so December of 91, Disney announces they've cut a deal with the Henson Company to release the Henson's library of movies and TV shows under a brand new banner at Walt Disney Home Entertainment. This will be the Jim Henson Home Video label. In the same window of time, Jim's gone, but the Muppets have to live on. So, they got to get the next project in gear. So they cut a deal with ABC to make a TV movie based on Charles Dickens' holiday classic, A Christmas Carol. And Jerry Jewell, longtime writer for the Muppets, finishes the script. It's at this point that Disney steps up and says, "Hey, we want to make that as a feature film to be released to theaters." And hidden agenda here, Lauren. Michael Eisner, who loved the Muppets, not to tell tales out of school here, but when he was in charge of Saturday morning television at ABC, I don't want to say embezzled, but may have, funneled some money out of ABC's Saturday morning budget to give it to Jim Henson so he could shoot the first two pilots of the Muppet show. Was kind of,
Some
it's like, well,
serious love
the
right
Muppets are
there.
that's serious love. I could lose my job, but I believe strongly what you're trying to do here. So Brian Henson, Jim's 29-year-old son, winds up directing A Christmas Carol, and he tells the story today that when it's done, Disney looks at it and said, "I thought this would be funny. It's a drama," and it's like. Have you read A Christmas Carol? It's got ghosts. It's about a guy who thinks he's gonna die. All right. Anyway, December 1982, Muppet Christmas Carol comes out. Does okay at the box office. I mean, it makes 27 million in ticket sales. It cost 12 million to make, and obviously, looking further on down the line, becomes a beloved holiday classic. But again, the Henson Company has to get the Muppets back out in the public space. So in May of 1993, so just 6 months later, Henson Productions announced their next production is going to be Muppet Treasure Island. Now, mind you, they don't have a distributor lined up. Disney has a first look deal as the first right of refusal, but Brian really, really, really wants to make Muppet Treasure Island for some other studio than Disney. And Lauren,
What?
the reason here is that Muppet Vision 3D, the original deal was only for 18 months,
Oh.
and with language in the deal to the effect of if everybody played nice, they would then renew the deal for an additional 3.5 years. So it could have a 5-year run at Disney MGM. So, again, if things had gone south, Muppet Vision 3D would have only run at the studios through 1996, then gone into the Disney vault, never to be seen again. I mean, the very last thing Jim Henson himself personally directed, gone. You
And
know,
look at us
um,
almost 20 years later.
yeah, easy, easy. Now, also remember, Disney is now releasing Henson's movies and TV shows under their home entertainment division, and of course, the fact that the first movie that he made after Jim Henson's death got released by Disney Studios, and what Brian is afraid of is that the impression that's now out there in Hollywood is that Muppets, for all intents and purposes, is owned by Disney. I mean, yeah, the deal fell through, but they seemed to only do business with Mickey, which then meant other studios and entertainment companies they'd be reluctant to do business with Jim Henson Company. So this is why Brian's like, we need to do something that allows us to step out from under the mouse's shadow and send a message to the rest of Hollywood. Henson is its own separate thing from Disney, and that we're willing to work with you guys, just if you want. And so, but again, November '93, home video version of Muppet Christmas Carol goes on sale. behind the scenes, nobody, there are no nibbles for, other studios stepping up and offering to even, let alone produce Muppet Treasure Island, but even just distribute the film. And so, to keep the lights on at the Henson Company, Brian has to agree to, all right, well, let's make a home premiere with Disney. So, September of '94, they create this thing called Muppet Classic Theater, which is original production for the home video market. It's 6 classic fairy tales told the Muppet way. It's a lot of fun. But again, behind the scenes, they Brian can't get a deal with any studio. He has to reluctantly go back to Disney and go, all right, you want to make Muppet Treasure Island? Let's go make Muppet Treasure Island. So April of 1995, production of Muppet Treasure Island begins over in the UK. 14 long week shoot. They're shooting it in the exact same studio that they shot Muppet Christmas Carol, Shepperton, and Brian Henson is once again directing. And this time around, he's okay working for Disney on a Muppet movie for theatrical release because Brian has a plan. He has something in his back pocket. He's been talking with the folks at ABC. And July 19th, 1995, just as they're completing production of Treasure Island, it is announced that the Jim Henson Company has cut a deal with ABC Television. They're going to produce a new version of The Muppet Show for prime time. By the way, this was originally called The New Muppet Show. Eventually ended up airing on ABC as Muppets Tonight. Um, anyway, um, so it's supposed to begin airing on ABC as a mid-season replacement in late winter, early spring of the next year, 1996. And to Brian's way of thinking, this is a genius plan. Disney will release, it's supposed to release Muppet Treasure Island in February of the next year, 1996. Just a month or so later, Muppets Tonight will debut on ABC. So the movie will create big buzz for the launch of the new TV show. So it's a win-win. But, but what poor Brian doesn't know is at the very same time, Disney behind the scenes is negotiating to buy ABC Cap City for $19 billion. All right, so
It
picture
all
this.
goes back to Eisner.
Oh, it all goes up 2 weeks later. August 1st, 1995, this acquisition deal gets announced, and poor Brian now finds out the Muppets are once again working for Disney. And okay, February 1996, as we mentioned, Muppets Treasure Island comes out in theaters, does okay at the box office, but the problem is it sells $47 million worth of tickets, but it costs $30 million to make, so not a whole lot of profit there. Then, March 8th, 1996, so 3 weeks later, Muppets Tonight debuts on ABC. Um, does not deliver the ratings that ABC was hoping for, and it gets pulled off of ABC in July 14th of that same year. Um, and then it sits in the can for almost another 15 months before the remaining episodes of the Muppets Tonight Show get burned off starting in September of 1997 by being aired on the Disney Channel. So Brian is beyond frustrated at this point because, again, the perception is out there in the entertainment industry that Disney is the de facto owner of the Muppets. Or it's that Henson only works exclusively with Disney, so he needs to do something to change this impression. So around this time, Kirk Thatcher writes a spec script, Muppets in Space. Storyline of this is Kermit being abducted by aliens and his Muppet pals having to journey into deep space to go rescue him. And what would have been cool about this, Lauren, is it would have been the big screen debut of the Swine Trek, the the space vehicle from TV's Pigs in Space, that long running skit from the original Muppet Show back in the 70s. Now, what was interesting here is that Brian looked at that and it's like, wow, that's going to cost a lot. I mean, you're going to need to build a swine track. You're going to need to do scenes that are set out in space. We're going to have to do Muppets that are floating in gravity. That's expensive. Is there a way we could do this without doing that? And so Jerry Joel, as I mentioned earlier, longtime writer, Muppet writer, wrote the screenplays for Christmas Carol and Treasure Island. He collaborates with Joe Mazzarino and Con Kaufman, and they come up with a screenplay called Muppets from Space, which it kind of inverts Kirk's idea. With now, it's just the climax of the movie where the aliens enter the equation and they actually come down to Earth and meet the Muppets.
Oh.
Um, all right. So anyway, what happens here is again, Brian's very concerned about costs. So they opt to shoot in Wilmington, North Carolina, starting in November of 1998. Film, even with working this hard, it still cost $24 million to make. And by the way, this one's not directed by Brian Henson, but rather by Tim Hill. But all right, Lauren, we're finally getting to the jelly jars here. Now, where this gets weird is in May of this same year, 1998, Welch's, which by the way has been making jams and jellies since 1869, that's 155 years now, they release a set of 6 highly collectible uh, jelly jars featuring the Muppet characters in space related garb. Now, again, I want to point this out from, let's take a look at the camera here. That says Muppets in space,
Indeed, it
not
does.
it's in rather than from. And we have, and again, that's Kermit dressed as, I don't know, basically an Apollo astronaut. And we have the lovely Miss Piggy, again in her space garb, which you have to have pearls when you go into deep space. Look at that,
Duh.
pearls. Okay, cool. But again, here's the weird part. It's Muppets in space, not Muppets from space. And the story I've always been told, Lauren, is that Henson had set up the movie to be made at Sony through their Columbia Pictures division, and as part of the long term promotion, they reached out to Welch's, which they had a previous professional relationship with. They had done Welch's had done jelly jars for I want to say in 1996 for the Wubbalicious World of Dr. Seuss, which was another series that Henson made. And so it was just like, oh yeah, we'll do it for the next Muppet movie. And somewhere along the line, they never told the people at Welch's, oh yeah, the name of the movie has changed, and it's coming out in 1999. Is that going to be a problem? That's why these jelly jars are so highly prized and sought after by Muppet fans. They celebrate a movie that was never made, Lauren. Um,
I was just gonna say, like, wait, is there more to the story? Did it like
no,
what happened?
that's it. It's just literally somebody, it's like, all right, Carl Henson. All right, they're making a movie, Muppets in Space, got it. And it's coming out in 1998. Solid. And so, May of 1998, these things come out. July of 1999, Muppets from Space is released to theaters. And again, remember, made for $24 million, only sold 22 million worth of tickets, so it
Oh
actually
no.
loses money. And on the heels of this happening, Lauren, the Henson family decides to sell the Jim Henson Company to EM, a German entertainment consortium, 7 months later in February of 2000 for $680 million, which sounds like a big pile of money. But it turns out it's a stock swap, mostly a stock swap. And it turns out that EM stock is enormously overvalued. And suddenly everything goes sideways. And for example, EM gets in trouble and turns around and they need to be bailed out financially. They actually sell off their half of Sesame Street. Now, thank goodness they actually sold it to the Children's Television Workshop, which which was the had the other half of Sesame Street. So they, I mean, those two pieces came together, and they've held on to it ever since. But the folks at the Henson Company were in absolute despair, because it's like it was the money from Sesame Street, particularly the licensing of the toys, that kept Henson afloat for years, and now that revenue was gone. Um, anyway, long story short, it takes the Henson Company several years, but they eventually buy back the Muppets in May of 2003 for just $89 million. And what's interesting is they hang on to them for 9 months and then sell them off to the Walt Disney Company in February of 2004. And and remember, this is where our story started. Michael Eisner finally gets what he wanted. He has the Muppets at Disney, but the irony, the absolute irony here, Lauren, is Eisner wouldn't be at Disney all that much longer. He steps down as the company's CEO in September of 2005. And Bob Iger, never really a Muppet fan. So all of that cool stuff we talked about at the top of the show. Oh, and I forgot to mention, there was going to be a restaurant merch shop that was just built around Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem, that was going to make fun of the Hard Rock Cafe. It was called the Hard Luck Cafe. Uh, and but that never got built, and we're still waiting for all of that wonderful stuff that was supposed to come with the Muppets, that at Disney, that never ever happened. So
I do have to say though, Jim, just a little bit of a tie. When I worked at ABC, an ABC affiliate, the Muppets in prime time did make its way back to prime time in 20 like 15-ish. Do you remember
it
that? So
did that was
even with
Bill.
Bob Iger not being a huge fan,
Yep. Yeah, no,
still
no.
brought it
In
back.
fact, what was fascinating about that story, that was Bill Prady, okay, and Bill Prady, at that point, was behind The Big Bang Theory, which, remember, was a huge
Yes.
hit
Oh,
at
giant.
CBS. Yeah,
Yes.
and
We were
and
ABC and CBS, so I very much understand.
there we go. Okay, and the thing was that Bill started his career working the puppets, and when he actually went to Disney and said, I know how to do the Muppets, and give me the Muppets, and I will deliver to you a primetime TV show that that on for ABC, that everyone will love, and these characters will be out there again, and you can merchandise them. And to be completely honest here, Disney made that deal because they wanted to be in business with Bill Prady. They wanted the guy who made The Big Bang Theory to be working at ABC. They didn't care about the Muppets. Bill Prady cared about the Muppets. And once again, when the Muppets came on and didn't do bang up ratings right out of the box, ABC, after just, I want to say, 10 episodes, took them off the air. And it was a wonderful show. Bill did an amazing job. And it should have run. And in fact, to be honest here, Lauren, Muppets Tonight should have run as well. But every time somebody does something with the Muppets, they forget that the first Muppet show, the one that ran in the 70s, didn't run on prime time. It was syndicated, and in every market it ran on a different night. I mean, it ran in the 7 o'clock hour, but it ran on a different night. And it was one of these things where local affiliates, were just like, hey, people are tuning in for the Muppets, we're thrilled. And so that show only became a huge hit in year two and year three. If they had let that show soak, if they had let the audience find that show, or more to the point, they'd let the show find its feet. Because again, that's the other thing they don't talk about with the Muppets, is the first season, they're still figuring out that show. They're still figuring out which, I mean, hell, Gonzo didn't really become a character. Miss Piggy didn't become a prominent character till season two.
Oh, wow. I did not
You
know
know,
that about them.
yeah, yeah. No, I just trust me. I have all sorts of pointless information in my head, and much of it is Muppet related. But anyway, long story short, that's why I have spent all of this time collecting Muppet jelly glasses. In fact, this is my first one right here with Rizzo the rat eating the green cheese that's on the moon. And it took me forever to get all six, but I just finished it.
What
So
was the
anyway,
last one? Which was your
the
last one that
last
you got?
the last one was oddly enough Miss Piggy, and what was interesting is the person would not give. I made a lower bid, and it's like, no, it's Miss Piggy. You're paying top dollar, pal. So but again, but we also have my again my spirit animal Fozzie Bear. So him and Humphrey. So
We got
all right,
Flossie, we got Humphrey. I was just gonna say that.
that's
No, so
again.
thank you for sharing the amazing story and your amazing collection. We have been waiting to do this feature for Miss Piggy. So now the feature is complete. So I think it's about time that we close up shop.
That
Like
makes sense.
I think so. This has been a heck of an episode. Jim had mentioned earlier in the show that Pixar Fest was right up against, we got the season of the Force over in Disneyland. So we got some new merch for Pixar Fest, which is running from April to August. So we got some time to cover all the merch that's coming along with that. We did have a listener write in and ask about home decor and the evolution of that. So I think we're going to talk a little bit about that on our next episode, since now Disney is a real significant player, if you did not know, in the home decor market. Very exciting. So we want to hear from you not only about your collections, like tell us what you have, and maybe we can share some information on the show. We also want to know what you're doing with those popcorn buckets. I mean,
Well,
Jim's eyeing Jabba the Hutt. So let's see there.
that's it exactly. Or Doug the dog. But also, folks, want to remind you that again, we have the 35th anniversary of Disney's Hollywood Studio coming up, and evidently, there's all sorts of limited edition merch that'll be coming available on May 1st. So, if you want to let us know what you got and what you're chasing, we'd love to hear about that. But again, please reach out and let us know what you'd like us to cover on this show. And Lauren, toward that end, how can folks get a hold of you?
Yes, so people can find me at lauren@laurenhersey.com, Jim at jimhillmedia.com. Really simple. But we're also over on YouTube. So we're really trying to get you some new interesting video content over there. So if you've not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do. That is just at Jim Hill Media.
Okay. And I guess for now, Lauren, that's going to do it for I Want That Too. So, on behalf of the lovely Lauren Hersey, I'm Jim Hill, and thanks for listening, and we will be back soon.
Hi there. If you want to hear the rest of today's episode, you can head over to iTunes and listen to the full audio experience there. You can also head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/JimHillMedia, for the full video episode. Or if none of those options works for you, then we will see you back here next week. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button, turn your notifications on, and comment below and let us know what you want to see in future episodes.